Good morning again, all you brave people that weathered the rain. Something about Floridians, if you've grown up here, I was talking to someone earlier who hasn't grown up all their life in Florida, but if you've grown up here all your life in Florida, rain does this like weird thing to you. When you're laying in bed and you realize it's raining outside, it makes your body numb to where you don't want to get out of bed. And it's almost like, it's a sign. God wants me to stay in my bed. I'm just going to stay in my bed this morning. And then it was actually a seasonal person from up north who because of rain? Like, we fight snowstorms going places, going shopping. So we're just big weenies, you know. I'm from Florida too. Rain just makes me want to just stay in bed and sleep. And so you guys braved it. But I'm so grateful for the rain, man. We needed it. And keep all those people, even the firefighters, in your prayers. It's a good thing. The rain is good, so we welcome it. If you guys have your Bibles, we are on a journey in Philippians, and we're reading this letter Paul wrote to the church. It was one of his favorite churches. It brought him great joy. He loved the church because they were full of joy. They were just a church that had a great foundational beginning. It was based on Jesus. You know, there's no better church if you base everything in your core on Jesus and nothing else. You don't let politics, you don't let finances, nothing can detour you from the mission of Jesus. There's just no better place to be a part of. Let me tell you, just as a pastor, how hard it is to get to that place. There's so many things that try to compete with where the Lord wants to take a church, and focusing on Jesus can be messy, because Jesus likes mess. It doesn't scare him away, it scares us away, but he's like, man, when there is messes, that's where I'm needed the most. That's when people start getting desperate for me. That's when I can show up with my power because they've resigned doing it themselves. And so Paul loves this church. And this whole book of Philippians is based on a lot to do with joy. It's a joy book. And we've learned a lot about, Paul teaches us how they get together, and at their core is the gospel. He tells them, go share the gospel, remain in Jesus, press on towards the goal. Remember, Paul's writing this letter to this church while he's sitting in prison. So he's not in some, Hilton in a nice, comfy bedroom writing this letter. He's in prison. He's probably been beaten up. He definitely hasn't had a good meal in a long time. And he has obviously heard about this conflict that is going on in the church. So I titled the message, Can't We All Just Get Along? And I titled that message because it's a question that you might ask, can't we just get along? Whether that's in your friendships, whether that's in your family, whether that's in your church, your work, can't we all just get along? It sounds so great to say, but here's the answer: no. No. We cannot all just get along. It doesn't work. So we're going to go back couple thousand years, and we're going to read about a church who's having an issue. And let me just help you that nothing's changed. We still have disputes and arguments, even as Christians with each other. It won't change. I've been in church life my whole life. I grew up. And some of the ugliest fights that I've seen have been in church life with churched people. We don't fight well. And sometimes we use the Bible as a weapon in our fights. It was never intended to be used as a weapon. So I think it's going to be I hope you take notes, because Paul's going to address these two women that are having this fight in the church. And it's gotten a little out of hand, because if Paul has to spend time addressing this issue, it's gotten out of hand. And that's what fighting, I see it happen. I've done it in my own life. it's about, you start getting into sides. You want people on your side. You want them to understand how hurt you are. And you want them to you want them to agree with your hurt. I see it all the time, and I've done it in my own life. You want people to be on board with your story. It's just something broken in us. And so I'm sure these women are in the church and they're gathering their teams up. They need to know, are you with me and against them? Because if you're not with me, then you're against. And so Paul's going to step in here, and so we can take notes on different levels. You're either in a conflict with someone and you can take a notes from Paul. You can either be, Paul's going to show us there's a peacemaker that gets involved in this argument. You can take notes on how to be a peacemaker. Or you can be Paul. And we're going to see what Paul does to refocus this argument that they're having. So if you guys want to go, this is how important this is. This is what happened. This is the story we're going to be reading, and it literally fell out of my Bible. The enemy was like, you know what? I want you to lose this. I almost lost this. The only page that is, my Bible is beat up, man. But this is the only page that's ever fallen out. So I know this is important. So y'all need to pay attention. I paid attention. I need this. I needed to do a better job of how handling disputes in a church and in my own life. So everybody gets to learn something today. So we're going to just pick up. We're going to read it first together. So this is Philippians 4, verse 1. Paul says, "Therefore, my brothers, you whom I love and long for, my joy, crown, that is how you should stand firm in the Lord, dear friends." Verse 2. "I plead with you, Euodia." I don't know who would name their kid that, but hey, Euodia, you never know what catches on. "And I plead with you, Syntyche, to agree with each other in the Lord. Yes, and I ask you, loyal yokefellow, help these women who have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my fellow workers, whose names are in the book of life." He says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Don't be anxious," that word stems from the word anxiety, "about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition. With thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you." So this is how Paul's dealing with this. I want to go back into verse 2 because I think it's really important how he starts it. He says, "I plead with you, ladies." I plead. He says it twice. I plead. I plead. Because let me help you out on a little secret. That's all you have. When you're dealing with conflict in your life, and you're trying to be the peacemaker, you're trying to bring truth into the middle of a conflict, you only have the option to plead. You can't control, you can't dominate, you can't force them, you can only plead. And your first point, if you're following along in your notes, is a plea will only work if they want to stay connected to Jesus. A plea with someone will only work if they want to stay connected to Jesus. I've dealt with, just being in the ministry a lot, and even watching my parents growing up in the ministry, dealt with a lot of conflict in all different, in marriages and people and the church, and especially over politics. And I've come to realize early on when I would counsel people, I would try to bring an iron fist. And it's just not ever going to work. The only thing you have is to plead with them and to remind them of what the most important thing is, to remind them of who God is calling them to be, and to remind them to put Jesus back into the center of the situation. And I've seen people who don't do that, and then I watch people who will put Jesus back into the center. And it's a huge difference. It's a major difference in people's life. So a plea will only work if they want to stay connected to Jesus. This is what Paul does right after. He says, help these women who have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel. He is reminding, this is like me reading this letter to you guys out loud. So he's addressing this in front of the whole church. Can you imagine if you got in a fight with another church member and I addressed it from the pulpit with your names? You'd never come back. We're so sensitive in 2017. You'd leave, you'd never come back. I can barely talk to someone about an argument, let alone say you drop your name in the mic in front of everyone. So I can't even imagine can you imagine being these women? I would be so embarrassed. But they're becoming so toxic that he has to address this situation. Because in our anger, all we're doing is masking hurt. That's really it. When someone's so angry, there's so much hurt. I'll say, help me see him with your eyes, Jesus. And when I can do that, when I can see him through the Lord's eyes, I see the hurt behind their anger. It's always the case. Someone who you find very angry, and maybe they're passive, aggressively angry, but behind that is hurt. Always. And there's a book out, it's even called Hurting People Hurt People. All the time. Hurting people hurt people. They don't even realize. But they're so hurt. The only good they're going to do and contribute to someone is they're going to hurt them in the process. It's just the truth. So he reminds them to get back. He reminds them they have been at Paul's side. I love how he says they've been at his side. They haven't been leading in front of him. They haven't been back behind him. They've been at his side. He reminds them, man, go. You have been at my side, going after people for Jesus. Remember, he's bringing them back. He says, remember, we've been doing this thing together. Remember why we're doing this. Remember why you're showing up on Sundays. Remember why you're going to outreaches. Remember why we did Easter in the park. Remember why. He's taking them back to the root, back to the message. Because church isn't about you. It's not about you. It's about reaching others and sharing the good news of Jesus. You already know it. So come just sitting here and getting fed every week and you're not doing anything outside of the walls. I would say you're stagnant probably. He's reminding them of the mission. It's my job. I've got to keep reminding myself and reminding you of the mission. We have to remember, it's not about me. That's why we don't do memberships. Because membership starts with M-E. There's no me. It's a partnership. We partner together. Paul's reminding them, man, we've been partners in this thing. Don't let this little fight, it's over something trivial. I know it's not over anything to do with the gospel. It's not like they're arguing about the Trinity. They're not arguing about a theology. Because otherwise he wouldn't say, hey, go back to the gospel. Their focus is off of Jesus. They're probably fighting over whether they had glazed donuts or sprinkles. I mean, we get really petty. When we start thinking church is about us, we start thinking people have to think the same way we do, and if they don't, something's wrong with them. So I'm sure this is a petty fight, and I know it's not about the meat. It's not about the word, because that's what he tells them to go back to. Here's your second point is, when we have the Lord's approval, we have nothing to prove. When we have the Lord's approval, when you really have the Lord's approval, and you know that he loves you, there's no way you can mess that up. There's nothing you can do to separate from his love. Nothing. Some of you have tried it. And his love is consistent. It's faithful. It ain't going nowhere. He loves you. And when you get a sense of his approval, that he approves not of everything you do, but he approves of you. He loves you. When you know that, when you can taste that, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. And sometimes in this world we get caught up. We care so much about how we look to others, what people think about us. And it goes to superficial a lot of times. Especially for us women, and maybe you men, it's more of a, are you successful? Are you a hard worker? Are you a, that's so important how people view you. But when we taste God's approval towards us, and he loves us no matter what, we can't earn it, we can't work harder, we can't be more successful, we can't be prettier, he just loves us for who we are. It's a release. It's like we were singing, the chains fall off. Because the enemy wants you in chains of caring so much about what people think of you. But when you've tasted God's approval, it won't matter. And you're thinking, oh yeah, well the guy's a big jerk, and shouldn't that, and he calls himself a Christian, shouldn't that, or that lady's she's doing all this stuff and calls herself a Christian, what kind of testimony is that? They're not plugged in to the source. Because when you really taste God's approval, it's grace. When you really accept his grace, there's nothing you want more than to rep his name well. In fact, you beat yourself up all the time that you don't. If you're worried about Jesus' reputation because of you, man, you're in a good place. You're worried about it. It's the people that think that they're shining, and Jesus' reputation is shining through them, and they're, just like, I'm just amazing and wonderful, and, that's a scary place to be. But when you're aware, you're like, oh, Lord, why would you want me? Why would you want me as someone who defines your reputation? Jesus is like, because you get it right now. Because it's my grace. Anything good comes out of you, it's because of me. And that's the biggest testimony. That's the biggest witness we have. So God's approval has to mean the world to you. And when you taste his approval, there's no better. A while back I was journaling, and I had dealt with a situation between people, and I think I did decent with it. But after I did decent with it, I just really didn't do well with myself. And I went into a spiral of my emotions. And I was journaling, and I was just beating myself up for letting myself, just go so downwards. And I heard God say, man, I'm so proud of you. You led my sheep so well. You just forgot to lead yourself. But you're hooked into the source, and I will lead you. sometimes we can lead others and we can give advice to others so well. But in our own life, if you're a peacemaker and you're constantly putting out fires, and you have to be really careful in that, because who in your life, you better be hooked up to the source of Jesus. You better be letting him lead you. So Paul, he says, he reminds these women, you were at my side, the cause of the gospel. He goes on to say, he goes right into, rejoice in the Lord. I taught you guys this verse. If you don't know a verse in the Bible, Philippians 4:4. I learned it growing up. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Philippians 4:4. Look, you got the clap. You remembered the clap, okay? That's old school, but hey, it works for your memory. So Philippians 4:4. Say it, let's say it together. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. You got a verse. You know a verse. And that verse is a sword. It is a sword. It should be a sword in your life. Because this is what Paul, he goes on, he says, let your gentleness be evident to all. Let your gentleness. If I described you, if I was doing your funeral, and I wasn't going to lie about you, would I describe you as gentle? Sure. Oh gosh. Would somebody describe it? If your boss, or maybe you're the boss, so let's get one of your employees, that's always dangerous. Let's get one of your employees up on the mic, and would they describe you as gentle? No, I'm not. You can't be gentle when you have to lead people. You can't be gentle. If I had $1 for every time I heard that. If I had $1 for every time I said that. That's the real, I'd be rich. You can't lead people to be gentle. But somehow, the best leader of all time, Jesus, figured it out. In fact, in Matthew, he tells us, I don't know, Roy, if you have this up here, but Matthew 11:28, if you want to flip over. If not, it'll be on the screen. I want to read you this. This is what Jesus, he's given a little sermon. And this is how he describes himself. How funny if this page would come out. Then I would know I'm tracking with the Lord. 11:28. Okay, so let's read this. This is what Jesus says. He says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me stop there. I forgot to tell you. When he says, he calls this, nobody knows who yoke fellow is. When we read that in verse 3. Yoke fellow, it means like companion. It means like someone who's got your back. It means like, I just love that word. I'm going to start using it. That's my yoke fellow. Like, I mean, is that not a cool word to describe? That's my yoke fellow. It comes from that same word, that yoke. And Jesus is talking about his yoke here is light. When you're wearing his yoke. See, when we have our own yoke on, back in the day, the ox, they would take an older, wiser ox and hook him up, because 2 heads go in a yoke, and they would put him with a younger ox. And they would do that because the older ox knew not to waste the energy, knew what to do, was strong, could carry most of the weight. It allowed the younger ox time to learn, be mentored, and grow. If they just put 2 young ox together, they'd run around wasting energy, getting into trouble. I mean, it's real life. So this is what Jesus says. He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am what? Gentle and humble in heart. And you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. He was a gentle leader. Doesn't mean he wasn't tough. Jesus flipped tables over. One day I'm going to do that. Flip tables over. But Jesus was, he's our example. And he's telling us, I'm telling you about myself, that I am gentle and I'm humble. Can people say that about you? It's something for us. Here's your third point is, if the conversation is not gentle, you gain nothing. If the conversation is not gentle, you gain nothing. Trust me, this is a hard concept. Because when you're in a fight and when you're in a conflict, it's just like a physical fight. Have you ever had those back in school days, they're the little ones that just run their mouth and they're just, and even in a fight, it's like they just, that with one punch, you can knock them out. You almost even let them hit you a couple times. You'll see this in boxing. The really bad dudes, they'll take some punches. They'll just stick their head out, actually, and let the guy just punch. Because ultimately, I know that I'm getting ready to knock you out, right? So when we are in debates with someone, or arguments, or conflicts, it's so hard, especially when we're close to people, because you know enough about them to have a knockout punch. You know enough about them. I've failed at this many a times. I'm getting better, but I have failed. When someone comes at me and criticizes me and puts me down, I'll take some of their punches, their lightweight punches. But see, I know stuff about them, and I can easily, just one punch, boom, lay them out. Of course, I'm not talking physically, even though sometimes I'd like to do that, but this is spiritually. Information I know. This is about their emotions, their character, their information. And it's so hard not to use information you have in a fight. It's so hard. But I'm telling you what, the minute you take that fist out, the minute you want to go back with a blow, because you're hurt, you're offended, you lose. Nothing will ever be accomplished from that moment on. Nothing. It feels good in the moment, but you lost. If your ultimate goal is peace, and your ultimate goal is reconciliation, man, the minute you took that punch, you're done. You're done. Because no conversation will ever get anywhere until you're gentle. And you don't have the ability to be gentle in a fight without being plugged in to Jesus. Especially if someone knows you and starts coming after you personally. It's extremely hard not to fight back. But you know what it does when you don't fight back? I tell this to people when I do marriage counseling all the time. If you could just learn, keep your mouth shut. You know what it does? It forces the other person they want you to lash back. Because then they can be angry that you hurt their feelings. They can be angry that you used information against them. But when you don't do that, it forces them to take a mirror. And all they have is themselves to look at. They need an excuse to be angry, but if you don't give them one, you stay gentle and humble. You take a couple of their lashes. You don't lash back. They have only themselves to look at. And that does one or two things. That drives them away, or that drives them to the cross. In all fights. And when I'm talking about Christians who know the Lord, when I confront and love, a couple things happen. Either they're offended and they're gone, or they press into Jesus and you see beauty rise out of the occasion. They grow from it. I've seen it over and over and over. But I lose if I don't remain gentle. You will lose if you don't remain gentle as a peacemaker. Some of you, God has called to be peacemakers to people around you. He's actually put you in some situations around people that there's no peace at all. You're the only peace in that situation. And that's a heavy yoke if you're carrying it on your own. That's why Jesus is like, man, yoke up. Take my yoke. He goes on, Paul talks about the anxiety here. It's rampant. I wanted to talk more about this, but I heard this one person say, they were talking about, cigarettes. The cigarettes were so horrible. It was such an epidemic. And they got all these commercials, and you guys have seen it over the past generation, and we really, really took a huge bite out of cigarettes. Our youth, but hardly any of our youth are smoking like back in our day when everyone was. And so they were just so proud of themselves. And I'm not saying that wasn't a good thing, but I heard this other pastor was talking about it, and they said, what we didn't do? We eliminated an addiction, but we didn't address the real issue of the anxiety. So they just traded that for something else. And now we have a pill epidemic. If you know anything about students and you know anything about what's going on in our culture, it's a massive epidemic. It just pushed, it's like one of those, whoop, you bop the head down, but another one pops up. You bop that head down of cigarettes, but eating disorder popped up. Bop that down, but a pill addiction popped up. Bop that down, but they went to drinking more. Pop that down. Because the cigarette was never the issue. It was, the root of it was from anxiety, of a trauma that's happened in their life, or an inadequacy feeling. Something was pushing them to need an outlet. Like all of us, even as adults, you have outlets. Maybe it's food, maybe it's whatever it is. You have an outlet. And until you get to the root of it, it's going to keep popping up. And typically, it's always associated with anxiety. It's rampant in our culture. United States has the highest percentile of people battling with anxiety. It's just true. So Paul's talking about it thousands of years ago. Paul's saying, because it's been around. Because the enemy loves to get us full of anxiety. Because if you're battling with anxiety, guess what you're not walking in? Peace. If he can get you off focused. He got these two women fighting off focused. Now they're having anxiety because there's someone hurt them, their feelings, they're offended, or someone's not agreeing with them, and they're off focus. They're having anxiety, they're having worry right now. And Paul's like, man, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, pray. Worry about nothing, pray about everything. You guys have seen that. It's a slogan, it's a bumper sticker, it's a coffee mug, it's a shirt. It's a tattoo. Worry about nothing. Pray about everything. It's not a cliche. It's a fact. You gotta get the sword out. You have to fight. He goes on to say, he says, worry about nothing, but in everything pray. And the peace of God, which transcends, breaks through barriers, that word means, all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. First, you got to believe it, that his power can transcend, can pierce through all your anxiety, all your issues. We're going to do something here a little bit different. I just felt like the Lord told me to do this, so this is what we're going to do. I can keep talking and give you more words and give you more information, okay? But sometimes, information only will take you so far. You have to experience. You have to experience the Holy Spirit. You have to experience this peace. And then it'll eliminate your questions. It'll eliminate, because that word transcends. It's a whole nother level. It goes through things that nothing else you couldn't stop worrying. But somehow God's peace, you let it transcend through your worry, and you feel and you taste his peace. But it's just like lifting weights, It's just like it's practice, it's repetition. it's not just easy to just let go of your fears and your worry and your anxiety and say, Lord, bring me your peace. It's not easy. But it becomes easier the more you learn to use your sword.